here's the thing that has struck me that it would be really helpful to talk about, and it's an idea that's been growing in me in part as a reaction to some of the really huge stuff that the church has been working through, to do with really big headlines around culture, abuses of power, styles of leadership, and that kind of thing. So that's in the background, but it's not that I want to talk about. It's the idea that one of the reasons why that kind of stuff happens may be because it's relatively hard for little things to go wrong in a way that's healthy. I think in part, even to put the sentence like that raises the issue in our minds that how could something going wrong be a healthy thing? Surely a healthy church, stuff doesn't go wrong. And I think that's exactly what I want to invite us to think about and challenge, because I think in a healthy church, little stuff needs to be going wrong all the time. And I don't just mean the kind of the tech stuff, the PowerPoint slides changing at just the wrong time if you were going to sing the next verse at the right time. And obviously there's a point in which that kind of thing can just be irritating and unhelpful, and it's great to continue to work at it. But I think I mean things like this week has been a really tough week in our marriage, and it's okay for me to be able to say that to somebody. Or I really found last week's sermon difficult to hear. And I don't know if you meant that.
And not because of my hearing aids.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It landed badly with me. And it seems to me that, and perhaps particularly because of the kind of huge sensitivity that we now have about how well our leaders are doing. And those are such important questions to ask. And nothing in me is saying, let's not talk about that. But it means that any kind of discussion in that area feels like it's pushing that button. And we need to try and find a way to say, yeah, that wasn't great. And I'm sorry. And thank you for pointing it out. And I need you. And I hope we can do better next time.
Without it mushrooming into a major moral issue or something.
That's right. It's I was at a training session by Lisa Oakley recently, and she's done a lot of work in spiritual abuse. And I found this a very helpful model. She describes four circles to describe the kinds of things that are going on in church. The first one is healthy. The next one is unhelpful. The next one is unhealthy. And the last one is abusive. And she was saying that healthy is great. Hopefully we know what that is. The next one is unhelpful. And that happens all the time. That's a normal thing. It's a valuable thing, in part because to recognize what's going wrong helps you come back to healthy and avoid being unhealthy. But even if it's unhealthy, it's really important to have a discussion about it, to recognize it and put it right. And those both become important ways in which you don't get the kind of the drift towards things which can only be addressed because they become a crisis.
Yeah. Would it be important to set some boundaries here in terms of all the examples you listed were relatively small?
Yeah.
I found last week's sermon really difficult to listen to, as opposed to, I just don't like the preaching in this church, or something like that. Yeah. Would that be helpful to say up front? That what we're talking about are small bumps in the road along the way, the addressing of which can really help the culture of a church.
Yes, exactly. So I think the motivation in raising them needs to be positive. I'm not trying to do you down. I care about church. I assume we care about church together. We want to, let's have a constructive conversation about these things. Let me come at it from a slightly different angle, maybe. A friend of mine talks about the car park conversion that Christians experience on their way into church every week. They've had a nightmare argument at home. They park the car. Assuming you have a car park, they get off the bus, whatever it is. And as they come into the door, they're all smiles. Everybody behaves. The answer to the question, how are you, is I'm fine, not we've just had a blazing row. I'm not ready to listen to anything, kind of thing. And I think the kinds of issues I'm raising here are the same kinds of issues. Can I come to church if I've had a really bad morning? Is this a church that connects with people who are finding life difficult? And relatedly, sometimes there's a prayer which is incredibly well-meaning. Lord, please help us to leave behind the troubles of the week, that we can focus on you. And a big part of me, this is not my original idea, a big part of me wants to change that. Say, let's never pray that for a time anyway. Let's pray. Dear Lord, please help us to bring all the things of the week in, to hear your grace, to have help from your people, and to make sure that everything that we're doing here in church is connecting with life as I'm really living it. And I'm going to be going out there to live it again tomorrow. And my children are still going to be my children. My wife is still going to be my wife. And my challenges at work are still going to be my challenges at work. My experience of redundancy and all those things that are asking huge questions of me during the week need to be part of my engagement in relationships in church.
Wow. Let me just check I'm hearing you right. I think I'm hearing you talk about two related things, but they're slightly different. One of them is a culture. They're both to do with the culture in a particular church family. One is a culture where members of the church, people who come, have permission to say constructively critical things about the ministry they're receiving from their elders and their leaders.
Yeah.
And the other one is a culture in which everybody in the church family, perhaps particularly the elders and leaders, have permission to be honest about how things are going in their lives when they're not going well. Yes. Have I got it right? It's those two kinds of things.
Yes, absolutely. And I think they're linked because elders and leaders need to lead in this. You know, it's often said, I think rightly, that in a sense, a pastor needs to be the chief repenter.
Yep.
And that doesn't just mean that they say louder than anybody else, I'm a terrible sinner. It means that we hear a little bit of the detail in their life that puts colour and shade into what aspect of that is in their life right now.